we'll be commencing the colloquium. I'd like to request you all to kindly be seated. Thank you. On the very outset, I extend a warm and pleasant morning to one and all assembled here. Adab, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum. आप सबका ख्वातीन और हज़रात तहे दिल से खैर मकदम है. I am Huda Zariwala. I will be moderating the colloquium for today. Before we proceed, मैं डॉक्टर अल्लामा इकबाल के एक शेर आपके पेश नज़र करती हूँ जो कि इस मौजू की तर्जुमानी करता है. अर्ज़ किया है, तू शाहीन है परवाज़ है काम तेरा, तू शाहीन है परवाज़ है काम तेरा, तेरे सामने आसमां और भी हैं, तेरे सामने आसमां और भी हैं, सितारों से आगे जहां और भी हैं, सितारों से आगे जहां और भी हैं. Pathbreakers, the 20th century Muslim women of India. In partnership with the UN Women, the Muslim Women Forum is immensely honored to welcome you all for this colloquium and exhibition. We are here to celebrate Muslim women. With exceptions of a few, most of them have been completely forgotten. Today, we stand obliged and hold these great women in high esteem. Today, we remember the supreme contributions of these great women. Today, we pay an ode to the extraordinary women who are immensely applaudable in shaping new India. So let's begin. Our chair for today, Madam Salma Ansari, could unfortunately not be present because she's unwell. Without further ado, I'd now like to take this opportunity to invite upon stage Dr. Saida Hamid. आपकी ढेर सारी तालियों के साथ Dr. Saida Hamid. She is a social and women's rights activist, educationalist, writer, and a former member of the National Commission for Women and Planning Commission of India. She is also one of the founders of the Muslim Women's Forum. Dr. Saida Hamid, thank you. I'd now like to invite upon stage Ms. Nishtha Satyam. Nishtha Satyam was appointed as the Deputy Country Representative for UN Women, the entity of the United Nations that is dedicated to working towards gender equality and women empowerment. Thank you very much. Our next guest on the dais would be Ms. Seema Mustafa. She'll be presenting a keynote address, Asli Azadi, Pathbreakers of the 20th Century. That is the address that she'll be talking on. Seema Mustafa is an Indian print and television journalist, and she's currently the editor-in-chief of The Citizen, a digital newspaper that she has founded. Thank you very much. My next guest would be Mr. Sunil Tandon. Sunil Tandon is the director of the Indian Habitat Center, and he is active as a theatre director and actor, and he's currently the president of the Delhi Music Society. आपकी खूब सारी तालियों के साथ हमारे panelists यहाँ पे ready हैं. Thank you very much. So let's commence the first inaugural session, and we already have the introductions of our entire guest and panelists in the folder that you've been provided with. You are requested to kindly go through them, and let's proceed. Thank you. I hand over the mic to Dr. Saida Hamid. Thank you.
Distinguished friends, let me add my word of Khush Amdeed and welcome to all of you, and say what a great honor it is to have you at this colloquium. For me, this was a dream come true, and I have to take a minute to express that. But before I do that, I have to say that Muslim Women Forum is very happy that UN Women is partnering with us, and Nishtha has been in a way, also my inspirer and my right hand, and she will say her own piece. But let me just start by saying that this was a dream come true, as I said, because I really wanted to, Muslim Women Forum really wanted to remember our mothers. And these were women who became partners post-independence of building a new India. And the other very important point is that these women, being practicing Muslims, observing all the injunctions of Islam, gave up the purdah, gave up the burqa, and jumped into the fray. And the result is there for you to see in the exhibition, which Suneet will take us later on, take us for a round. I have one amazing incident to share with you. In doing this research, my colleagues and I, we came across this woman who's the first woman in the gallery that we have upstairs. Her name was Tayyaba Khatib Jung. And Shafi Sahab and Akhtar Wasi Sahab will remember, in 1905, उन्होंने एक नॉवल लिखा जिसका नाम था अनवरी बेगम. अच्छा, ये नॉवल उन्होंने लिखा, और जब मैंने उसको देखा, when I read about it, 1905, suddenly I got a flash in my mind, and I suddenly realized I've seen it before. And as a child, I had seen that novel in my mother's library. So can you imagine how many years? And then when I went to some place where the books are, this novel just jumped at me. And there was this novel, Anwari Begum, by Tayyaba Khatib Jung. And that is why, whereas most of the women, all the women we have featured, their major work has been post-independence, but Tayyaba Khatib Jung is the only exception. Because I thought it was so amazing that novel she wrote in 1905, and its introduction was written, it was posthumously published, and its introduction was written by Maulvi Abdul Haq. And the other thing which was so amazing was that when I opened the book, we all have read as children Thomas Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard. Who has grown up without reading Thomas Gray? At least my generation and the next generation. The children here may not have read it, but suddenly I find that she has done a beautiful verse translation, which is, somebody said it's better than Gray's Elegy, Shafi Bhai. It's a beautiful verse translation of Elegy in a Country Churchyard in Urdu. So we have picked up 4 lines of it and we have put it under her photograph. So I think these are very nuggets in my mind. The other thing I want to share with you is that my generation is the last generation who would have personal memories of some of these women. Like Seema Mustafa's grandmother, Anis Appa. For me, she was an icon. I was young, but I thought of her as somebody that I wanted to emulate. And maybe I just did a little bit. वो कहते हैं ना कि उनकी दामन की कुछ खाक हम पे भी पड़ गई थी. So that kind of discovery, that's the personal touch. And we are calling this phase 1, because people are saying, आपने इनको लिया, इनको नहीं लिया, फलाने जगह से नहीं लिया, तमिलनाडु से कौन है, केरला से कौन है. But no, this is only phase 1. We have a gallery, thanks to Suneet, we have this wonderful gallery, which can only take so much, and we have limited resources. But I'm hoping, and I'm seeing Samina and the younger people here, and Selina, and I'm hoping that younger people will take it up. Because there is such a wealth there, believe me. You just have to just probe it, and it's like, I read this poem of John Keats when I was doing my first year of English honors, and it said that, and then I felt like a watcher of the sky when a new planet swims into its skin. And really, it's like you're discovering wealth after wealth after wealth. So I'm simply saying that Muslim Women Forum, which was founded by one of the women, she was our founder chair, Begum Saida Khurshid, who's also there, her dream and Dr. Sughra Medi's dream, and today we have this, but the baton has to be passed on, and it has to be taken up by the younger generation. So I would just like to, and that's about all. Muslim Women Forum came, I must say that we must add that we came into existence in the year 2000. So we've been in the field for 18 years. Personally, I detached myself more or less from it for 10 years while I did Planning Commission. But it was a passion. And the passion was to bring out what Muslim women are. And essentializing Muslim women as stereotypes, we had to bring them out. It's not chulha, chadar, char diwari, teen talaq, char polygamy, char shadiyan, halala, all of these things which are alien. These days we are observing Ramzan, and I read the Quran every morning after Sehri. I never found the word halala in the Quran. I never found the concept of this instantaneous triple talaq in the Quran. So we have to, and these women understood it. And these women practiced it. For them, they were practicing Muslims, but their practice was the practice of life. When Begum Anis Kadwai went in the Sharnarthi camps, the displaced people who came, she did not know whether it was day or night, or where was her burqa, where was her purdah. She was just helping humanity. So I think that is the whole idea of Bulle Shah and all the poetry that we read. So I think I've said more than really I wanted to say. Have I left out anything? And I think that, I was reading the Quran this morning, and in Surah Al-Nur it said that it's the men and women of purity who are not affected with what people say. For them there is forgiveness. It's always Quran talks of men and women, men and women. It does not in any way single out gender as something which needs to be put into a certain niche and looked at in a certain way. So I really want to thank all my friends, my colleagues, my Muslim Women Forum. We have a small core team, and with UN Women by our side, we were able to do it because we are also part of their sustainable development goals. So I want to thank you very much and pass on to Nishtha to make her remarks.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it was wonderful hearing you, and thank you so much for setting the mood for the colloquium. Maybe now listen to the amazing Ms. Nishtha Satyam.
Adab, namaskar. It's what could be a more pleasant morning than really seeing a group of wonderful people in the room. ये हमारी खुशकिस्मती ये है that the generation that we're in has had the opportunity to coexist with the generation that we are seeing, and we actually have the opportunity to see the work that was done in this country and to make India what it is, or at least the India that we dreamt of. A very, very heart-warming welcome from the bottom of my heart to each one of you who have taken the time to be with us here today morning. I really do truly commend the team that has put this together, of course, led by Dr. Hamid, in profiling and bringing out stories of women who broke barriers and became partners in the India that we had dreamt of, in the India that is outlaid in the Constitution. Among women featured here are women who are exceptional women and led extraordinary lives. They, among many other Muslim women, have made immense contributions in arts, science, and public life. But I think it is indeed a serious question for all of us to ask. How and why did we forget these women as we went along? And today I think it is our absolute moral responsibility of the United Nations to work with forums like these to bring out from memory and history the immense contribution that women, particularly minority women, have made in designing what was then New India. But not just designing New India, but also reminding people around us of the India that we set out for and the India that we dreamt of. While we celebrate these lives, it is also important for me to reflect on some stark realities. Almost half of Muslim women are illiterate even today, as per the 2011 census. Half of Muslim women are subject to violence, just like the rest of the community is not in an isolated way. It is evident that as of today, none of us can continue as business as usual. We will need to work on all fronts, and the United Nations, particularly UN Women, is committed to working on the normative, policy, operational, and advocacy across levels, international, national, and local levels, to ensure that the agenda that was set out through the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals focuses on achieving progress that is no longer uneven, but touches the lives of every single woman and girl in this country. It is also important that we continue to use the lens of intersectionality to focus on women who will not just foster change, but who will also be at the front in leading that change. So for us, this is a very intimate effort, really, at knowing lives that were once at the forefront of change. They may have been forgotten once, but we will always make the effort of going back and bring them back to the history at the forefront to make sure that each one of us are reminded of the contributions that Muslim women made to India. This is one such effort. UN Women is committed to continuing these efforts, to ensuring and reminding again and again until it is heard that the India that we dreamt of and the India that we want for ourselves is made up of many different people, of people from all kinds, by women who represent 50% of the population. It wouldn't be an overestimate to say that if we overlook 50% of the population, we're never going to get to the Sustainable Development Goals. If we don't achieve it in India, it doesn't matter where we achieve it. It's still going to be so incomplete. We cannot afford to miss and to recognize and acknowledge the contribution, the passion, the creativity, and the work by 50% of what made India then and what makes India today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nishtha, for enlightening us. I now pass upon the mic to Ms. Seema Mustafa. Asli Azadi, Pathbreakers of the 20th Century. This is the keynote address that Ms. Seema would be addressing. Ms. Seema?
Thank you. Well, I'm very honored to be here, and especially because of the nature of the exhibition, and which the Muslim Women Forum and Sayyida Appa in particular have put together with, of course, the help of the UN Women. It's an extremely important issue, particularly today, when communities are being put into monoliths and where stereotyping is pushing perceptions of communities as persons who have no history and persons with no present, and probably through that, no future. So this the range of iconic women who we can see in the exhibition, and of course, as Sayyida Appa pointed out, many more, becomes extremely important. Asli Azadi. Asli Azadi is also, of course, as she reminded me, my mother, is more important to me. She didn't have to remind me. Azadi was also my mother's name, leading up to the freedom struggle, her nickname given by the family. And when I was looking at the exhibition just before coming in, I think what really struck me was all those women had broken the barriers almost a century ago. They broke the barrier of education. They were MAs, they went into the universities. They broke the barrier of purdah, which was fairly prevalent in all communities at that particular point in time and still is. And they came out into public life. And this is not of today or yesterday. This is almost a century ago. When they broke those barriers and they came out and they worked according to their commitment and their dedication and their belief. They worked with honesty, they worked with independence, and without even having to say it or carry feminism on as a badge, they actually challenged and very, very effectively challenged the patriarchal order of the time. They educated their women. If you look in their families, I can say about my grandmother who was referred to. Her daughter was an MA and was educated in Lucknow University when women did not go to that university. They were still hesitant particularly Muslim women. And you realize that there is a personal and a political which is so important in the lives of these women. I just want to share an incident concerning my grandmother, Begum Anis Kidwai. We grew up without knowing whether we were Shias or Sunnis. Not because that was any knowledge that was denied us, but it was not factored into our lives. It was not seen as important. Not because we were less cultural or less religious. My grandmother was practicing, and the family indeed were practicing Muslims, observing the rituals of Islam. But yet we were not told such stupid, divisive things. And I remember I was in class 11, and we went to a school, to a library in the local Greater Kailash colony, and I'm sure the librarian was of some sect of the community, because she asked us, young woman, are you a Shia or Sunni? And me and my cousin looked at each other, and I said, Shia. And then we looked at each other and we whispered that we think perhaps we've said something wrong. So we turned around and said, Sunni. And that's when we went back home and checked what we were. And it had never come in our way. It never stopped us from doing anything that we wanted. And about my grandmother also, which we never knew, another thing which I learned in young adulthood. I knew that she was widowed in her 30s. I knew that my grandfather vaguely had been killed during the freedom struggle. He was a collector in Dehradun, and he was handling the refugees. And he wanted to settle in all the refugees coming from Pakistan and ensure that the ones who were fleeing or going away from this country were also able to go. And his elder brother, Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, was sending him letters and messages that come back. It's becoming extremely dangerous. You have to get back. My grandmother, a young woman with 3 children, was extremely worried that time in purdah, because she must have been 30 plus, just about. And he refused until he had completed the task, and then he'd send a message that I'm taking the train and coming back tomorrow to Lucknow from Dehradun. And he was killed that night. We never knew, we were never told the identity of the person who killed him. It was seen and put in a perspective of the circumstances of the time. In another family, any religious family or any other community, it could have been used to breed hatred. It was never even something that was discussed because it was understood as a complexity and a collateral, really, of partition and the violence and the anger and the unhappiness. And it's only much later that we knew who the person was, what his community was, and, details which we then as adults could easily handle, and nobody could mess around with it. And then she went to Gandhi. She was inconsolable in her grief. And she went to Gandhi and she said, I want to do something. And she started weeping. And Gandhi told her, you go back, think about it, get some composure, come back to me. By then she threw away the burqa because she realized that shackled her, that it was not something to be romanticized. And she came back to him, and from then on she never looked back. She, Subhadra Joshi, Mridula Sarabhai were a formidable team of women, and unsung maybe, but the kind of work they did during the days of partition and after, and the way they worked in the Northeast, they worked UP, Bihar, Delhi, is probably a matter of record. So I think you cannot get azadi until you free your mind and until our minds are free. Unfortunately, as we are growing and we're supposedly getting more civilized, our minds are getting more controlled. We are becoming more shackled, we are becoming more biased, we are becoming more fearful, we are becoming more controlled. We are becoming so prejudiced, and in the process, we are becoming less free. It is, and it's not a question of the good times then. I think as a journalist, I live very much in the present. But when I do look at the past, I do see a period where there was at least a freedom to think, where thought was encouraged. It wasn't shackled. Women have, there is a stereotype, to come down to Muslim women, there is a stereotype that has been deliberately created about the community, and then, of course, within that, of women. And I realize how much a victim of the stereotype we women ourselves are, when in a group of educated women, or women who are doing things, there is a conversation justifying or romanticizing hijab and romanticizing purdah. That, to me, is very, very troublesome in people like us. I'm not talking of people in the villages, because there you can understand a lot of what's happening. There are three indicators which really I want to talk about quickly, just flag, which also show that how, when the situation worsens, and that is why I mentioned this thing about the hijab, because when the situation worsens, when communities and minorities or peoples start feeling very, very insecure, then patriarchy, which has always been part of our existence from the moment we are conceived as women, because it is that patriarchy that ensures that we are killed before we are born. It is that patriarchy that ensures that we are not educated. It is that patriarchy that ensures that we are not able to work, and even if we are able to work, we do not reach the top levels of society, of the profession. I don't think many of you know that today in journalism, after being free for so many years, there's not a single editor-in-chief of a political mainstream newspaper who is a woman. Not one. Considering there's so many women political reporters who are excellent and have done a great job, but they're not allowed to rise. But that's aside. So the three things I quickly want to say is that about this insecurity. One, I saw it as a young reporter in the post-Shabano period. When, after the Shabano legislation came through, you had a reform movement, and I think people here know that better than I would. Mohini Giri is there, Saida Hamid and others. There was a reform movement, and a lot of women's organizations had actually been able to standardize a nikah-nama, whereby the rights of the woman would be protected in the marriage document, because Islam is not a religious marriage. It is a contract between individuals. You can put anything in that contract, and it has to be looked at, and it has to be sort of followed. And they had gone to many of the imams, and the imams had signed off on that. And it was moving from within, and it was being done by secular women's organizations. They were working on the reform of personal law when Babri Masjid happened. 1992, and it was a complete setback. I remember attending some of these meetings where the women then decided that, this whole quest for a uniform civil law, etc., would now have to take the back seat because of the firefighting, because of the violence, because of the communal tensions, because of the riots that had broken out all over the country. The second instance of a similar kind is West Asia, where the American bombardment of some of the most amazing civilizations of the world, which is Syria, Iraq, etc., has also brought in something that wasn't there where women were concerned. Having visited these countries, a great thing, I never saw the purdah in Iraq just before the invasion. There were banks being run by women. But they have sold a monolith. They've sold a monolith and a stereotyping of a community where people think that everybody in West Asia is barbaric and all the women are like the women you see emerging out of Saudi Arabia and now also Iran, which isn't true. They are different countries, different people, different levels of civilization, different levels of modernity. And Syria and Iraq now, after the kind of violence, patriarchy has taken such a stronghold, and you see more burqa in Iraq than you ever did during Saddam's time. And now in India. In India, the same thing. There is a sense of identity, which is where I go back to that conversation where the hijab is suddenly being romanticized, where purdah is re-emerging in the villages, where the violence against the minorities, where lynchings, where the fear, atmosphere of fear is creating a situation where the patriarchs, represented by Maulvis and mullahs and others, are able then to shackle women further. So it is not as, feminism is not something, or the rights of women cannot be made independent of the rights of a community, and the community cannot be made independent of the milieu in which it exists. It cannot be made independent of the country. It cannot be made independent of the constitution and of the law. And it is here that we need to fight. We actually need to free our minds. The tragedy is that we are not. And this is becoming so difficult, and I think everybody here who is in the field probably understands that even more as we, as journalists who are just recorders of reality, I hope at least of reality, that this is a tough battle ahead. And this is not, and it's getting tougher. I mean, I'm sure, Mohini ji, when you all started, you thought that by this time you would have achieved so much. And today we find that you're back to square one. The problems are the same or worse, actually worse. And how are we going to tackle it is something that I think everybody has to put our heads together. I only do believe that these issues cannot be tackled by communities alone, because communities then tend to come in from a religious discourse. These issues have to be tackled by us as women of all communities, or as people of all communities. We have to open our minds and actually let Azadi seep in. Thank you so much.
1 minute, Huda. Before I ask Huda to invite Suneet, I just want to say a couple of things. One, I want to what Seema said, and when we called this session Asli Azadi, I think it was Tazeen's idea that we should call it. The fact that your mother was Azadi and we called her Azadi Appa. We also called your grandmother Anis Appa. So Appa was an appellation that went for everybody. So you have really set the tone. When you say the word, we have to free our minds. Yesterday's paper carried news on the front page. I read the Indian Express. And the only issue about Muslim women was that there was going to be, on civil code, law panel ask Muslim groups, why deny some rights to women? So this was the front page of the paper, as if this is the only issue. And I want to remind us that the Nikahnama that Seema referred to was actually drafted by Sharifa Hamid Ali, who's one of our 21 women, and that was in the 1930 or so, when she drafted it. And then she went and represented in the United Nations. She became a representative on the UN Status of Women Commission, to which Meera goes from time to time. And what about Suraya Tayyibji, this woman who's become the face of Pathbreakers, who actually designed the Indian flag? And then there were I've read a lot of net saying that it was ascribed to so-and-so, but he said, nahi, maine nahi kiya tha, ye to Madam Suraya Tayyibji ne kiya tha. So, the record has to be put straight. And what I think Seema has already pushed us towards, what do we derive from these women? And why are we remembering them? And as I want to just repeat, that we are the last generation who would have had personal touch with some of them. And this project has to be taken forward by the younger people. And now you can invite Suneet.
Thank you, Dr.
Good
Saida.
hands.
Thank you, Ms. Seema. Indeed, Asli Azadi can be achieved once we free our minds. Thank you. A thought that all of us indeed need to ponder on. And
Now invite him.
I'd like to now invite upon Mr. Sunil Tandon to propose the formal vote of thanks. Thank you. And then there'll be an exhibition walk that he'll be taking us through. So kindly join us for that. Mr. Sunil, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think this is, it's a privilege for the Habitat Center to be hosting this forum, the Muslim Women's Forum and UN Women joint effort to raise issues which are very important and vital for our civilizational values. Thank you for coming here, because this is a space which is a space meant for free exchange of views, of ideas, which can take us forward. Thank you for being here. So I'd like to just formally thank Nishtha Satyam of UN Women for being here. Also Seema Mustafa for that wonderful address. And of course, last but certainly not least, Saida Hamidji for thinking of this idea. And the credit actually goes to my predecessor, Mr. Rakesh Kakkar, whom you had written to for organizing this at the Habitat Center. He was very happy to agree, and I'm fully happy to endorse and support that. Thank you very much indeed. I think without further ado, we should go for that marvelous exhibition which has been prepared, which is upstairs, highlighting the contribution of some of these absolutely remarkable women. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back for tea after that. Thank you very much. Will you lead us?
Yes, please.
Thank you.